Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coding with Shawn channel. In today's exciting episode, we're diving into the fascinating realm of programming languages. Whether you're taking your first steps in the world of coding or seeking a fresh challenge, I've got you covered. We'll be exploring the art of selecting the perfect programming language considering factors that suit your journey. Additionally, we'll venture down some of the diverse paths of the most renowned programming languages, examining their unique opportunities and challenges. So if you're all set, get comfortable, unwind, and let's get into the video. So before we get into the languages themselves, what actually is a programming language? Well, a programming language serves as the intermediary between our human language and binary, which is the language of computers. Writing code is how we give instructions to a computer. Because of this, programming languages are extremely significant in the world of computing because they can greatly influence what you are able to do with a computer and how important what you can do is, whether you're coding for a hobby or if it's your entire career. So you get what a programming language is, but why learn it? Well, in our world today, computers are everywhere. You're watching this video on some type of computer, and more than likely have other computers at home, whether they're laptops, phones, tablets, or other electronic devices that are capable of data processing. Even a calculator is a computer, and for any modern computer, there is some form of code on it. Because of this, to apply your ideas in computing, you need to be able to code. And programming doesn't have to be boring. If done right, it can be really stimulating and really push you to do your best work. Along with that, programming teaches many critical life skills, and perhaps most significantly, depending on your intentions, there's a really high demand for programmers in the job market. All that aside, let's now look at what some of the most common programming languages are today. This is a survey conducted by Stack Overflow to ask developers what their favorite programming languages are, and these are the results. More than likely, even if you've never even touched a line of code, you've heard at least one or two of these languages. And I would say that this survey is a pretty accurate representation in terms of what the best languages are. In case you're wondering, the reason that each ranking has two languages is because these results are what two languages developers like to use in conjunction. So based on this, most developers like to use Python with JavaScript, then Java with HTML and CSS, and so on. Now, C, renowned for its elegance and simplicity, offers a programming experience that is easy to grasp, making it an ideal choice for newcomers. Its power and efficiency are unmatched, enabling developers to craft high-performance applications with precision. C boasts a plethora of rich library functions, empowering programmers with a toolkit for various tasks. Moreover, the language's remarkably swift compile time streamlines the development process, fostering a productive workflow. C is inherently portable, meaning C code can seamlessly transition across diverse platforms, further solidifying its position as a cornerstone of the programming world. However, C does come with its share of challenges. It's important to note that compared to some other languages, C can appear complex, demanding a deeper understanding of its intricacies. Proficiency in programming is a prerequisite for effectively coding and running C programs, making it less forgiving for beginners. Unlike some languages, C lacks built-in runtime checking, necessitating careful code validation to prevent potential errors. Additionally, mastering C requires a greater degree of memorization compared to other programming languages. Despite these considerations, the rewards of harnessing C's capabilities are generally well worth the dedication and effort. All that said, I will say that for me personally, if you are a beginner, you probably should not start with C. This is more for people who have already done some programming. C++ offers the feature of portability or platform independence, which allows the user to run the same program on different operating systems or interfaces at ease. Suppose you write a program in Linux and for some apparent reason you switch to Windows. You'd be able to run the same program in Windows as well without any error. This feature can be of great convenience to a programmer. Also, C++ is a multi-paradigm programming language. The term paradigm refers to the style of programming. It includes logic, structure, and procedure of the program. Generic, imperative, and object-oriented are three example paradigms of C++. Since C++ is closely associated with C, which is a procedural language closely related to the lower-level machine language, C++ allows low-level manipulation of data at a high level. Embedded systems and compiler are created with the help of C++. Because of this control, C++ is also a very efficient language. Lastly, C++ is object-oriented, meaning that it includes objects and concepts like classes, inheritance, polymorphism, data abstraction, and encapsulation that allow code reusability and makes a program even more reliable. That said, there are some downsides of C++. Most notably, though simpler than C, it's still fairly complex and requires quite a bit of time to truly master. Along with that, it doesn't have something called garbage collection, which basically means that you will need to write more code than you might in another programming language for certain applications. And lastly, it doesn't support multiple threads, which basically means that you can only do one thing at a time in the language. Java is one of the most common and popular programming languages out there, and it makes sense because it's a relatively simple programming language to code in. Like C++, it's object-oriented, it's cheap and economical for most uses, it's platform independent, and highly portable, and even throws in automatic garbage collection to make things easier on the programmer. However, due to some of these extra features, Java does suffer from slower performance than some of its competitors. It requires a lot of memory, it requires a lot of code, and for some, it might be a deal breaker that you must pay to use Java commercially. Though it is free for personal and non-profit use, if you want to use it at a commercial scale, you'll have to pay license holders Oracle. If you do choose to start with Java as your first programming language, I actually do have a series on it for beginners on my channel, and you can check that out. I've linked it in my description. Python is my favorite programming language, as you can probably tell from my channel's logo. It is easy to learn for beginners, has a massive community, is flexible and has a lot of libraries and add-ons, has a lot of scalability, and is portable between operating systems and different devices. However, despite my love for the language, there are some issues in particular to note. Specifically, there are issues with the design of the language. It is slower than languages that compile beforehand, require a lot of memory because of its extensive set of features, supports multithreading but in a complex manner, and has garbage collection but one that sometimes causes memory losses. Despite all that, Python truly is one of the best languages to start with and gain the foundations of programming from. If you do choose to start with Python as your first programming language, I have an entire series on it at both a beginner and intermediate level, and I've linked both of those in my description, so please do check that out. Ruby will probably be one of the lesser praised programming languages on this list, but it shouldn't be. With a methodology of code that can account for many scenarios, great code efficiency, lots of libraries and add-ons, and standards for writing code that are among the best in the world, I cannot praise Ruby more. With that said, Ruby does have less than ideal performance, but it somewhat makes up for that in fast development time. Now, the aforementioned industry standards do take a toll on flexibility because of the strict writing standards. And one of the most frustrating parts of writing in Ruby is that its documentation is very poorly written, especially in comparison to Python or Java. Moving on to C Sharp, this is the language most used at Microsoft. It is object-oriented, a very high-level programming language that still has a great connection with the lower level, has a garbage collection system, and is essentially just a very dynamic language. Specifically, that last point refers to the concept of type safety, and if you're curious, type safety means that the compiler will validate types while compiling, and it will throw an error if you try to assign the wrong type to a variable. Now, some of the most significant issues with C Sharp are that it is somewhat slow, it's very dependent on Microsoft's .NET platform, and though once you have your flow it isn't that bad, actually learning it at first can be an uphill battle. Moving on to PHP, this is a language that has been around for a while and thus has many things going for it. It has great ability to be scaled as needed for a project, it's completely free and open source, has a great community from which you can get support, and is generally quite easy to use. That said, it isn't as flexible as some of the other languages, doesn't have some of the best tools to rid your code of bugs, has a core behavior that cannot be changed, and also does struggle from security issues, though this is only significant if you plan to code in PHP for commercial purposes for the most part. Our last language to cover is Objective-C. Objective-C is a language that is used almost exclusively for development on or related to Apple's iOS, so this is an interesting one to talk about. If you learn Objective-C, you will find that there's a great ecosystem within iOS, a way of running code that can be altered or changed as needed. support for older systems, compatibility with the C programming language, hence the name Objective-C, and a generally well-rounded community with lots of resources. However, Objective-C code is somewhat complex. It does consume quite a bit of memory if not effectively managed, has a slow runtime, has limited features, and perhaps the worst thing is that Apple is gradually moving away from Objective-C and towards a different language called Swift, so it might be a better idea to learn that instead, though it's up to you. So we've talked about a lot of things so far, and you might be a little overwhelmed. However, this flowchart, whose full credit goes to the original creator, I find to be really useful. It gives you a language for practically any use case, and I encourage you to pause the video and take a look at this. If you can't see it too well, there's a link in the description to the photo as well. In case you don't yet have a crystal clear idea of what language appeals to you, this might be what it takes to get you there. Now, this might seem a little anticlimactic, but when you look at it one way, it really doesn't matter that much what language you learn. The important thing is that you get your feet wet and learn the fundamentals of a programming language as a whole, after which you can really learn whatever you want. So even if you aren't 100% sure what you want to learn, just take a leap of faith, and I'm sure things will work out great for you. And with that, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and please leave me a comment letting me know what programming language you plan on learning. I hope you learned something of use, and I really hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.